CharlesCMann, 1491, New Revelations of the Americas Before Columbus. Embark on a journey that will challenge your preconceptions about the Americas before Columbus in the book 1491, New Revelations of the Americas Before Columbus by Charles C. Mann. Unravel the fascinating secrets and misunderstood realities of native cultures, debunking myths and assumptions about their ways of life. Discover the mastery of pre-Columbian societies in shaping their environment, creating thriving sustainable landscapes in regions considered inhospitable. As you immerse yourself in this captivating exploration, learn about the incredible agricultural innovations and major shifts in population, which left an indelible mark on the world.
Unraveling Hidden Cultural Depths. In 1948, anthropologist Alan Holmberg traveled to northeast Bolivia to study the indigenous Siriono people, painting a bleak picture of their lives. Decades later, new evidence reveals that the Siriono were a complex people who lived in villages and farmed, only to be reduced to a small, desperate population by disease and government policy. The Siriono example shows how scholars may miss important aspects of native cultures due to incomplete historical context and a lack of deeper understanding. In the late 1940s, American anthropologist Alan Holmberg found himself among the Siriono people of northeast Bolivia, seeking to understand their way of life. After spending 2 years with the Siriono, living in harsh conditions, constantly hungry and using rudimentary hunting tools, Holmberg concluded that their society was a living example of humans in their rawest form, untouched by civilization. This image of the Siriono persisted in academia for several years, but as new evidence surfaced, it became clear that Holmberg's evaluation was incomplete. It turns out the Siriono people that Holmberg encountered were not primitive, frozen-in-time hunters, they were survivors of a culture that had recently been shattered. The Siriono numbered around 3,000 in the 1920s, living in villages and practicing both hunting and agriculture. Their population dramatically decreased by 95% in just one generation, falling to 150 people due to devastating outbreaks of smallpox and influenza. As their communities crumbled, the Bolivian government supported white farmers' expansion into the region, leading to violent repression of the Siriono. The remaining Siriono people were either imprisoned or forced into servitude on cattle ranches. Holmberg's mistaken understanding of the Siriono is akin to observing refugees from Nazi concentration camps and concluding that their culture had always been devoid of necessities. Despite studying the Siriono for 2 years, Holmberg missed critical evidence suggesting they were not an isolated indigenous group but rather newcomers to the area. The Siriono language, for example, shared linguistic roots with other indigenous languages throughout South America, yet none in Bolivia. Additionally, the landscape revealed remnants of an older Indian culture. With these clues, it's clear that viewing the Siriono as an unchanging, primitive society was a simplification of their true cultural history. This story of the Siriono serves as a reminder that scholars must be cautious when studying native cultures, as it is entirely possible to overlook essential aspects of their history due to inadequate context or lack of in-depth comprehension. By acknowledging the complexities of indigenous societies, we can paint a more accurate and enlightening picture of the rich cultural tapestry that makes up our human story. Unraveling Beni's Ancient Earthmovers. The Beni region in South America showcases the remnants of an advanced pre-Columbian society. This massive area, sandwiched between Andean foothills and the Amazon rainforest, experiences 6 months of flooding followed by intensive drought. Amidst these extreme conditions, 20,000 earthen mounds known as lomas tower up to 60 feet high, providing habitats for unique plants. These mounds and geometric shapes visible from the sky are evidence of human influence, not mere flukes of nature. In 1961, American geographer William Denevan embarked on a chartered flight over the Beni. From the aerial view, he observed perfectly circular forest islands emerging from the flood plains. These islands were connected by raised earthen paths and encircled by precisely shaped fields, ditches, and ridges. Convinced that human intervention was behind these geometric marvels, Denevan's beliefs were affirmed with archaeological work in the 1990s. Research revealed that the lomas, aged between 3,000 and 5,000 years old, were constructed using a distinctive technique. Large heaps of broken pottery were covered with earth, increasing the mound height and aerating the soil to enhance fertility. One of the largest lomas, known as Ibabate, contains more pottery fragments than Rome's Monte Testaccio, a hill created by centuries of discarded terracotta vessels. Yet, Ibabate is just one among hundreds of lomas holding similar quantities of pottery. While much remains unknown about the people who built these mounds, some deductions can be made. The extensive pottery production indicates the existence of a dedicated class of potters, signaling a large society with a division of labor. In turn, a robust support system would be needed to provide for these skilled artisans. Furthermore, the remarkable earthworks imply long-term planning and effort spanning hundreds of years. These ancient earthmovers had left the Stone Age well behind, reflecting a level of sophistication long before Columbus arrived in the Americas. Today, the Beni region stands as a testament to the ingenuity and persistence of a long-lost society that thrived amidst environmental extremities, proving that human resilience transcends time and place. Shattering Indigenous Misconceptions. The earthmovers of the Bolivian savanna demonstrated incredible skills in farming and pottery, rivaling ancient Rome. They cultivated crops, maintained orchards, and harnessed the power of the wet season by constructing channels for efficient fishing. Though their earthworks were abandoned in 1400 AD, they left behind a remarkable human achievement that challenges the misconceptions surrounding indigenous societies. For centuries, Europeans believed that Native Americans lived unchanged lives in harmony with nature. However, the impressive accomplishments of the Bolivian earthmover societies illustrate that Native Americans actively shaped their environment, debunking the age-old myth of the noble savage. In the vast region of Bolivian savanna, ancient societies showcased their remarkable skills in pottery making and creating ingenious agricultural systems. These industrious people cultivated crops like beans, squash, and sweet potatoes in raised fields while establishing orchards on mounds known as lomas. Rather than being limited by their surroundings, they cleverly utilized the Beni's 6-month wet season to their advantage by constructing earthen channels in the floodplains, directing fish into their hand-woven nets. Around 1400 AD, these societies abandoned their earthworks, possibly due to diseases. However, the legacy they left behind stands as one of the most significant human achievements in the region. More importantly, their accomplishments challenge a long-held misconception regarding indigenous societies. For almost 5 centuries, Europeans narrated a recurring story about Native Americans, suggesting that their lives were inextricably tied to their environment. This belief portrayed indigenous peoples as noble savages, living off the land without altering or improving it. As a result, they were depicted as passive recipients of nature's bounty, rather than actively shaping their world. European perspectives often deemed their supposed lack of innovation and ambition inferior, justifying European conquest of indigenous lands. Nonetheless, historical sites and artifacts, such as those left behind by the Bolivian earthmover societies, refute this age-old stereotype. The intricate earthworks and innovative agricultural systems they developed are testaments to their creativity and resourcefulness, demonstrating that Native Americans were not mere bystanders in the natural world but rather active participants in shaping their surroundings. As a result, the extraordinary accomplishments of these indigenous societies counteract deeply rooted misconceptions perpetuated by European ideologies. Through a deeper understanding of their achievements, the narrative shifts from one of passivity and stagnation to one that celebrates an active and transformative relationship with the environment. Reshaping landscapes with fire. Organizing landscapes to optimize human activity is a common practice across various cultures. While some civilizations used hand tools like plows and hoes to modify their environment for their needs, North American Indians employed fire as their primary tool. Lacking a variety of domesticated animals, they turned to farming wild game. To do this, they strategically used fire to create open spaces, making it easier to hunt animals like elk, moose, deer, and bison. They cleared entire forests and burned away undergrowth in others, resulting in two specific landscapes: open, rolling plains ideal for hunting and crop growth, and park-like forests. What appeared to be natural environments to early European settlers were indeed cultivated landscapes carefully established and maintained for centuries by Native Americans using controlled fires. Depopulation's climate impact. The examination of air trapped in ice cores and sediment in lake beds has allowed scientists to create a record of atmospheric CO2 levels over the past 800,000 years. A sharp decline in CO2 levels around the 16th century can be attributed to the mass depopulation of Native Americans due to diseases brought by European settlers. The reduction in CO2 emissions from fewer humans and the increase in forestation absorbing CO2 led to this decline, making it evident that human activities have a dramatic impact on the world's climate. Throughout history, it was the arrival of Europeans in the Americas that led to the spread of unknown diseases, causing a devastating loss of lives in Native American societies. For instance, the Cadones, an agricultural society in North America, saw their population drop from 200,000 in the 1530s to 8,500 in the 1630s, a staggering loss of 96%. Comparable figures were experienced among the Patuxet people in New England, who lost 90% of their population within 3 years due to viral hepatitis introduced by settlers in 1616. These tragedies didn't only result in massive, unprecedented losses of human life, which some scholars estimate to be 1/5 of the world's population. They also left indelible marks on the environment. In North America, land cleared by Native Americans was eventually reclaimed by trees, and cultivated forests became overgrown. These landscapes, later romanticized by naturalists like Henry David Thoreau, were once managed ecosystems but had turned into evidence of a recent catastrophe. The subsequent ecological impact was just as significant. The significant reduction in the Native American population led to fewer fires and, consequently, less CO2 released into the atmosphere. At the same time, the growth of more trees resulted in an increased absorption of CO2 from the atmosphere. This dynamic shifted the balance of global atmospheric CO2, contributing to a noticeable dip in CO2 levels around 1500. The lesson we can learn from this episode in history is clear: human activities have the power to significantly impact the world's climate. As seen through the tragedy of Native American depopulation, a substantial decrease in human populations and the resulting ecological changes led to a marked decline in CO2 levels. The connection between humanity's actions and climate change is a vital consideration for our future on this planet. Amazon's unsustainable agriculture. The Amazon rainforest, despite its vast biodiversity, has a soil base that is nutrient-poor and unsuitable for traditional agricultural practices. Farming this land is difficult, and modern methods like slash-and-burn farming only exacerbate environmental degradation by releasing stored carbon dioxide and destroying the region's ability to capture water. Amazonian Indians have long understood that not all farming in the region has to be destructive, showing that more sustainable alternatives must be explored. The Amazon rainforest is often perceived as a thriving ecosystem teeming with life, yet its rich canopy hides a significantly less fertile reality. The soil in the Amazon is nutrient-poor and acidic due to the stifling heat and constant rainfall eroding its minerals and organic compounds. Indeed, ecologists often refer to this lush landscape as a wet desert. Farming in the Amazon poses great challenges. With traditional indigenous stone tools, it takes an immense amount of effort to clear even a small area of forest. Furthermore, without the canopy's protection, rainfall has twice the impact, causing soil erosion to escalate. This leads to a confronting realization: modern agricultural practices are not sustainable in the Amazon. Complex societies hinge upon extensive agriculture to generate food surpluses, supporting those who don't farm or hunt. However, the harsh environment of the Amazon rainforest presents notable restrictions on the development of viable agriculture. The current solution, slash-and-burn farming, exemplifies humanity's adaptation to these limitations at a terrible cost to the environment. This method involves clearing the land with machinery, reducing trees to ash to balance acidity and provide nutrients to crops temporarily. Regrettably, this approach damages the forest's regenerative abilities, and excessive soil exposure leads to the loss of minerals and nutrients. The soil eventually turns into an infertile, brick-like substance. The consequences of slash-and-burn farming are catastrophically evident, as it erodes the rainforest, unleashes massive amounts of stored carbon dioxide, and diminishes the environment's capacity to retain water. It is clear that modern agriculture practices are environmentally disastrous. However, there is hope in the knowledge of Amazonian Indians who understand that farming in the region doesn't have to be destructive. This awareness signals the pressing need for more sustainable agricultural strategies that can support the thriving communities without wreaking havoc on the delicate Amazon ecosystem. Ancient Amazonian orchards. Contrary to Betty Megger's assertion in the 1970s, Amazonian societies flourished by incorporating fruit and nut orchards within the forest, rather than practicing destructive large-scale agriculture. The Marajora people, residing on Marajo Island, sustained their population of 100,000 for centuries by cultivating trees like the peach palm. Research suggests that 12% of the Amazon rainforest today originated from these human-created orchards. Archaeologist Betty Meggers claimed in the 1970s that Amazonian societies could not grow beyond a few hundred individuals due to the ecological limitations of the forest. Agricultural practices, she believed, would inevitably deplete the soil and force the society to collapse on itself. For some time, Megger's idea held weight among scholars and environmental activists, but new information has emerged, shedding light on how ancient Amazonian societies found sustainable solutions. About 4,000 years ago, a thriving civilization known as the Marajora emerged on Marajo, an island at the Amazon River's mouth. Meggers first developed her theory on this island, believing the Marajora were offshoots of a more advanced Andean culture. Attempts to adapt the Andean agricultural methods to the Amazon region resulted in the forest's decimation, according to Meggers. However, in the 1990s, archaeologist Anna Roosevelt revisited the site and discovered pottery, rubbish heaps, mounds, and evidence of intensive agriculture, indicating that the Marajora did not destroy their ecological foundation. Instead, they nurtured a civilization of roughly 100,000 people that lasted from 800 to 1400 AD. But how did they achieve this? The Marajora didn't clear the forest for crops like maize, common among slash-and-burn farmers. They cultivated fruit and nut orchards inside the rainforest. One such tree, the peach palm, exemplifies these sustainable practices. The peach palm, rich in vitamins and protein, produces fruit that can be baked, boiled, smoked, or brewed into beer. Fruiting twice a year for 70 years, it yields more calories per acre than rice or beans and thrives without human intervention. The Marajora were not the only ones to adopt this approach. According to botanist William Bully's 1989 research, 12% of the Amazon rainforest owes its origins to human-created orchards. As one anthropologist observed, visitors marveled at the fruit abundance in the forest, not realizing they were witnessing ancient orchards. In conclusion, the Amazonian society's success lay in their ability to harmonize their agricultural practices with their environment, ensuring sustainable living in the world's largest rainforest. Ancient Amazonian Soil Secrets. In the depths of the Amazon basin lies a vast area covered with a unique, dark, nutrient-rich soil known as Terra Preta do Indio, or Indian Black Earth. A surprising find in an environment notorious for its acidic and infertile ground, Terra Preta covers an area the size of France, accounting for approximately 10% of the Amazon. Unbeknownst to many, this exceptional soil is the result of a long-established agricultural technique employed by pre-Columbian Native Americans. Thousands of years ago, Amazonian Indians discovered the art of sustainable farming. Terra Preta is distinguished by its higher organic content, greater moisture retention, and resilience against intensive use. Unlike other soil types, this fertile earth remains teeming with plant-friendly phosphorus, calcium, sulfur, and nitrogen. The secret to its creation lies in an ancient method called /Anchar, a far more environmentally responsible alternative to the /Burn approach. /Anchar focuses on transforming organic matter, such as weeds, cooking waste, termite mounds, and palm fronds, into charcoal through smoldering fires, which are cool enough to walk through. This charcoal enriches the soil with structure, water storage, and nutrient receptacles. Astonishingly, research indicates terra preta is capable of retaining these remarkable properties for up to 50,000 years. As the name implies, the origins of terra preta are rooted in indigenous practices. Rural Amazonian communities have long recognized the soil's value and now capitalize on this knowledge by excavating and selling it to farmers and gardeners across Brazil. Yet the advantages of terra preta extend far beyond its nutrient density. /Anchar's eco-friendly credentials make it an attractive option in today's world, plagued by climate change and environmental degradation. Unlike the destructive /Burn method, /Anchar releases minimal carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Furthermore, terra preta's enduring fertility means that farmers can achieve high crop yields with little to no reliance on chemical fertilizers. As experts search for sustainable agricultural solutions to feed our ever-growing global population, the ancient wisdom of Amazonian Indians offers a compelling path forward. Harnessing the powerful properties of terra preta could mark a significant step in transitioning towards a more sustainable and earth-friendly agricultural future. Agricultural Revolution in Mesoamerica. Indians likely arrived in the Americas around 30,000 years ago, predating the Neolithic Revolution in the Middle East. They initially depended on hunting, but as resources dwindled, they turned to sustaining themselves with plants. This led to the Second Neolithic Revolution in central southeast Mexico, where indigenous people developed innovative agricultural techniques and produced crops, laying the foundation for diverse cuisines worldwide. Indians first reached the Americas much earlier than the previously thought 13,000 years ago, forming societies in Chile around 30,000 years ago. This indicates their Eurasian departure had occurred well before the Neolithic Revolution and the advent of agriculture in the Middle East. These early inhabitants of the Americas had to rely solely on their own resourcefulness to survive. Remarkably, they thrived, leading to a second Neolithic revolution in present-day Mexico. These early settlers in central southeast Mexico, a region of diverse terrain featuring rugged mountains and bountiful grasslands, were initially dependent on hunting for sustenance. However, over time, the climate changed, and grasslands diminished, making hunting less reliable as a food source. Consequently, these Indian communities turned to plants for sustenance, expanding their environmental knowledge. These early agriculturalists began experimenting with their surroundings, realizing that techniques like roasting agave plants made them more palatable. They also developed tools to remove cactus spines and created methods to detoxify acorns by soaking them in water after grinding. The watershed moment came around 10,000 years ago when they observed discarded seeds sprouting into fruit-producing plants. Thus, agriculture was discovered a second time in human history. This agricultural boom, dubbed Mesoamerica, introduced critical food staples such as tomatoes, chilies, squashes, and beans. These crops contributed significantly to the culinary identities of various cultures, including Italy, Thailand, and Ghana. Some estimates suggest that Indians developed nearly 3/5 of the crops currently grown worldwide, with the majority originating from Mesoamerica. Approximately 4,000 years after the onset of this period, the ancestors of these early Mesoamerican farmers started growing maize, a crop that currently feeds more people across the globe than any other. Transforming teosinte, maize's less nutritious and less appetizing predecessor, into maize is regarded as humanity's greatest feat of genetic engineering, according to American geneticist Nina Fedoroff. Ultimately, Central American agriculturalists left an indelible mark on the global food landscape, transforming the way the world eats today.
In conclusion, 1491. New Revelations of the Americas Before Columbus sheds new light on the sophistication and resilience of pre-Columbian native cultures, highlighting their skillful adaptation and impressive innovations. Contrary to misconceptions about these societies, they possessed advanced agricultural practices, transformed landscapes, and unprecedented population shifts. Ultimately, this book offers a renewed perspective to challenge the stereotypes and misconceptions surrounding pre-Columbian societies, acknowledging their rich history and legacy that remains today.